NMLS number 65084, equal housing lender. Woo!
As an adult, don't we all miss spring break? Nothing like taking a week off from all your responsibilities. Well, here's the next best thing for adults, a spring break from house payments. SaveWithConrad.com can help you get rid of all your credit card debt, just like that. We're routinely helping our listeners save $5, $6, $7, even $800 a month. And you don't need perfect credit or money out of your pocket to do this, but check this out, no house payments for 2 months. It's SaveWithConrad.com.
Okay, righto, Airheads, welcome back once again to another stirring rendition of Putting on Airs. I'm Trae Crowder, that's Corey Ryan Forrester. How are you doing today, Cho?
Hello, governor. That's the best one I got.
That's what I was kind of hoping for, honestly.
You were going all regal. I was going for like, can I have some gruel?
Yeah, I love gruel.
With bugs in it for protein.
Preferably, yeah.
Crunchy.
Yeah. If I'm going to keep hoeing this mud all day, I need some muscles. Be some more bug meat.
What bug do you think would have the most protein?
Ugh, Jesus. Grubs, maybe?
Yeah, because they're like
thick.
They're fatty though. Do you think most of that's fat?
Yeah, this don't hit for me, but
no, I hear you.
I mean, crickets are supposed to be a good source of protein, I reckon.
Yeah.
I've
eaten
like
crickets.
A hit thing. I mean, I have too. I've eaten chirps, which is cricket chips. Good name. Got to give them that.
Yeah,
Dude, I've just bugs just don't hit for me. Bugs
don't hit for me either. They don't hit even a little bit for me.
Yeah, I can't stand bugs, frankly. I know some of them are bros. I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't want them around me.
Well, dude, I mean, to go back to the great squirrel debate, you know how I feel about most animals that no one would give a shit if they died, I cry over. But when it comes to bugs, squash that motherfucker. You know what I mean? There's plenty more left. Squash that motherfucker.
Squash him dead. Also, we may have talked about it on an early episode, but I've always thought that gruel is a truly hilarious name for the thing that it is, you know, because
it sounds like what it feels like.
Exactly. It's like that's what, you know, and people got excited about eating that because it was either that or starving to death.
Yeah, right.
You know, it's like, some lovely gruel today. You know, like just having gruel on offering. I don't know the difference between gruel, porridge. What's there's other ones, right? There's like
that gruel there are several that like fall into that category, but gruel is like it's clearly named for what the people eating it were doing. You know what I mean? Like we're out here, they're in the grueling heat, they're grueling the day away. What do they eat? Gruel.
Yeah.
Or maybe they came up with that nickname for it. You know what I mean?
It's grueling to eat this.
Yeah, maybe like that.
I don't know. They weren't known for their wit, you know. The peasants.
Yeah,
yeah, not sharp as rapiers. They were not. But so on this episode, when we get to our main topics later, I'm going to be doing what I think is a pretty ultimate example of the Venn diagram between rich people and trashy people. I'm talking about strip clubs, because I mean, come on.
right.
I was in Portland this weekend, which naturally included a trip to a strip club, and so they were on my mind. So that should be fun. We'll get into that a little later. And after that, Professor Cho, what are we talking about?
Ironically, a pretty witty peasant, William of Ockham.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, fine then.
Yeah, well, but he's the exception that proves the rule.
Yeah, about to say, you know.
Well, and that dude in the barrel,
like stepping on my bitch from the grave. I don't like it.
Well, we also famously talked about Paradocles or
Diogenes.
What's Paradocles?
Pretty far off, but Diogenes though, like. He was a philosopher. I mean, I think he was also,
but he was a peasant,
crazy hobo. But he was like a philosopher who like lived that way by choice. That was like his whole thing.
Okay,
was like I could be up there in the stone circle, standing in a toga and thinking about stuff with Aristotle and all them motherfuckers, you know, because I hit it thinking too. But part of what I think is that ain't it, and I'd rather be drunk in this barrel.
Well, okay, well,
I've got a point to that. That's part of what I think. you know.
then you win because my guy's that's the reason he's a peasant, pretty much. So
He chooses to be?
I'll get into it. I'll get into it
Okay.
later.
Because,
But
yeah,
so
that's different.
I just need you to be right.
Okay. I also need me to be right,
Well,
but
yeah,
all right,
right.
thank you. Yeah, I ain't never heard of that motherfucker unless that wasn't Heath Ledger's daddy in A Knight's Tale, was it?
No.
No, yeah. Yeah. His name was William, I think, or was that Ledger's name? I can't remember. His daddy was a blind peasant, which was
Yep.
like, a
No,
whole thing.
not him.
Yeah, that would have been wild if it was him. But before we get into any of that, I thought we'd have a little fun up top. I found it should have done this a couple of months ago, but I didn't know this existed a couple of months ago. The Victorian era is just a real whale of comical lunacy. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like the stuff that they
Yeah.
were into. We've gone back to that well time and time again. I'm about to do it once more
And
right
will
now,
forever.
and will forever because there's no bottom to it. So Valentines were actually super popular in Victorian England. Like that's the thing I found out recently when I was doing a video for my Patreon. I'd always heard, and I don't know about you, but
That's
I'd heard.
patreon.com/Trae Crowder, by the
That's
way.
right.
If you're gonna
Thank you.
fucking plug it, plug it.
I'd always heard, and I don't know what if you had heard the same, but that like Valentine's Day was like basically invented by
Hallmark,
Hallmark or
yeah.
whatever. It was a very commercial holiday or whatever. It's not that it isn't a commercial holiday, but like that's not even a little bit true. Valentine's Day has like a pretty long and storied tradition going back a long ass way, and even including the little like the Valentines themselves. Part of the
Right.
lore of the origin of Valentine's Day was that there's like three different Saint Valentines in the history of the Catholic Church, and there's debate about which one was actually the Saint Valentine of the day, right? But or of Valentine's Day fame. But one of them was like a prisoner and was able to slip notes out to like
Oh, so
his
a
love or
Valentine's
his
card.
followers or something like that
Yeah.
from the prison. And so that is like purported to be the origin of that tradition. But it's one of those things where it's like, who the hell knows if that's true? But either way, sending the little love notes, that's been a thing for a long time. And it was huge in Victoria era England. That's all well and good. That's fine. What I did not know at all was that the opposite was also true in Victorian era England. Another thing that was easily just as popular amongst the Victorians as Valentine's cards were Vinegar Valentines, which were shit talking cards
You don't hit card.
you sent to people who did not hit for you, which I think we should bring back, frankly.
Yes.
Like
Well, we do. It's just called the
just
internet and a post.
I know, but that's the thing is like they like put these in the
Mailed 'em.
mail. And also in Victorian England, you had to if you received mail, you had to pay for it. The people didn't pay to
Really?
send it. Yeah.
That's
I mean, if you
hilarious.
wanted to receive it at all, you had to pay
Right.
for it. They didn't buy stamps and send them. They didn't pay shit. The person who got it. So if you get out of curiosity, ooh, what is this? You pay to open up a card that says you don't hit, right? Which is very funny to me.
It's
Uh,
hilarious.
and a lot of them were like from women to dudes that they were like declining their advances, and things like that. But not all of them. There was things like just shitting on sales ladies or whatever. A very popular one for a while was anti-women's suffrage Vinegar Valentines. So it was like,
Keep
so they were like
suffering, bitch.
they were like designed to send to women who wanted the right to vote and tell them like, just so you know, you don't hit, you'll never get married. Nobody wants that shit. It's like, and they all had little poems on them. Like there's this one that I found in this article. It says, your vote from me, you will not get. You will not get. I do not want a preaching suffragette. So owned. Uh, here's another one. This is, I
Am I
believe
supposed to be
from
looking at this thing right now?
you can if you want. I mean, you don't
Yes, I
have
do.
to.
I do want.
There's one with a snake with a top hat on, that's pretty nice, classically Victorian there. And the poem reads, I'm not attracted by your glitter, for well I know how very bitter my life would be if I should take you for my spouse, a rattlesnake. Oh no, I'd not accept the ring, or evermore, 'twould prove a sting. So,
Okay. So before I open this shit up, I'd had it open waiting on you to give me a cue or something. Before this, I literally thought that it was just people writing bad things. I didn't know that they actually went all the way through with like having a cartoonist design these you don't hit cards.
Yeah, and they would like some of them were like a Hallmark card, they're like
Right.
boilerplate or standard,
Stock. Yeah.
but not all of them. Like they would like commission these, and get like a caricaturist to draw an unflattering cartoon picture of somebody who don't hit for them,
Yeah.
complete with a poem about that person not hitting, right?
It
So,
It'd be hilarious if the person that this person was wanting to vinegar up was like an editorial cartoonist for a paper that they hated and they commissioned them to do a thing and then they later received it in the mail telling them that they don't hit.
right. Yeah. Uh, but like, how would you react genuinely if you got you don't, because that, I think not exclusively, but often in this part, I'm kind of like, come on now. If you're going to do it, do it. But
Do it.
apparently a lot
Yeah.
of them were anonymous.
Yeah, that don't
Uh,
hit.
I agree. So if you got a Vinegar Valentine, an anonymous Vinegar Valentine in the mail, like how would you react to that? I mean, like you said, we kind of get them all the time via
Yes.
DMs and internet comments and stuff. But again, if you opened up like a card, what looks like a birthday card or something, and it's got a caricature of you with a massive bald head and then a poem about how you specifically do not hit, how would you
Well,
react to that?
because of what you just said about what we get in our DMs and under comments, I'm sure that there would be a limit to which, like, eventually, if I got so many, it wouldn't hit for me. But like, you know me, and I know you. I think we would genuinely respect it to be like,
Yeah.
because most of these people, it's like, yeah, you call us queers on a comment because you can't think of anything else, or like that's the least you can do. If I started getting these and they were like, again, commissioning artists, I'd be like, I probably wouldn't like this person in real life, but I have to respect the fact that I don't hit for them so much that they went the extra mile to do this. I definitely would prefer getting these than just random DMs and comments. Like, I know, because first thing, it would be so much fun for us to share them with everybody in our various threads. We'd have a real good time with that. But yeah, I mean, I don't know, like it's the workings of a lunatic, that's for sure. But I think it
Right.
would hit for me.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I agree. Like you said, you almost kind of have to respect it. This is one that they'd send to an ugly woman. I'm having trouble reading it, but the title of it is "A Face That Would Stop a Clock." All right. And it says, "In prison, you ought to be doing some time, for to wear such a face must surely be a crime. If you amongst the gorillas had chanced to be born, they would have disowned you with loathing and scorn. For a monkey, no matter how homely a brute, when placed beside you, would be
Cute.
ranked as a beaut."
Uh,
Yeah,
yeah.
a beaut. Yeah,
You uglier than monkey,
than a
bitch.
monkey,
That's
bitch. Yeah,
that's
exactly. Monkeys would think your ass is ugly. Like that's going pretty hard right there, man.
that's so a Victorian way to put it too. That's what's so great about all these is like it's shit talking, but it's poetic shit talking.
Yeah, yeah, it is nice. Like they used to be, just better with word. Like even the you know
The refuse of the internet
shittiest
types.
refuge.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Exactly. They were eloquent in their shit talking.
Well, the ones that could afford to commission things were, at least. I mean, I'm sure there was plenty of amateur Vinegar Valentines, which was just, some peasant writing how someone sucked in his own poop and then like putting it on their door.
Yeah. Here's another one. It's titled "Hi, Sourpuss," and the poem is: "Your scowl must give folks ulcers. Who could love you but your mother? We know that you aren't two-faced, because if you were, you'd wear the other." Oh shit.
Shit.
Oh shit.
Hey, do you know? this is one of those things like Burgermeister where I've always wondered about it, but didn't do the simplest thing, which would be to look it up. Why is it that your face and your mouth is called a puss? Like he's wearing a sour puss, or get that puss off your face. Like, why does it have anything to do with a cat? Because cats have always been called pusses, I believe. But like, do you know why it is that this is a puss?
Um, Puss, meaning the face, first appeared as a slang term during the 1880s. It's derived from the Irish term pus, P-U-S, meaning the lips and mouth. The origin of puss, meaning a cat, which first appeared in English during the 1500s, is less certain. So
Hmm.
I don't know. It was yeah, especially it came to mean a face, especially when sour looking or ugly in the
Yeah.
in slang of the late 1880s, but it doesn't really explain why.
Yeah, because in The Sopranos, a lot of times Tony will say something like, "Oh, I punched him right in his puss," and I'm like, that just sounds so violently different than what you actually mean.
I do they use puss in that way over there? The other way,
In
our
Italy,
way? Huh?
oh, like, do they puss as in pussy? I don't know. They call it a fanny. Like,
Fanny. I know. That's
yeah,
why I'm
which
asking. So, like, do they even use puss in that way? I have no
I don't,
idea.
I don't know.
I mean,
Putting
I'm
on
sure
there,
they're aware of it,
yeah, right.
but I
Y'all,
don't know if they use it or not.
Well, y'all send us some emails at puttingonairs@gmail.com because I know that we have plenty of fans over there because they've been so kind as to send me some gifts from abroad for my baby. So let us know if y'all say pussy or if it's just Fanny.
Uh, Speaking of Victorians, I saw another thing about the Victorian era the other day that I thought was pretty wild. Did you know that in the Victorian era, uh, suicide was a crime viewed similarly as murder, as homicide was? So, like, if someone tried to kill themselves,
Yeah,
right, and they failed,
failed. Yeah,
they'd be like tarred and feathered and drugged through the streets and shit like that. Just to
that's
really show them that life is worth living, you know what I
yeah,
mean?
right.
Like,
But they wouldn't kill them. They would
so
just do.
sometimes they would, but not always. Sometimes, yes, your punishment for attempting and failing suicide was hanging, but
Yeah.
sometimes it was
No, here's how you do it.
yeah, right, but sometimes it was just, like, public humiliation or flogging or whatever, just, the wacky, wild shit they used to do back then, but
Yeah, I
to
just
people who
never.
were hopelessly depressed.
Like, I always knew that it was technically illegal to commit suicide, but I never thought like, I just always figured that surely if it's one of those like, well, you the punishment is that you tried and failed. We shouldn't have to do anything extra to you. But thinking about someone being tarred and feathered for being depressed
Yeah,
is
right.
very Victorian era.
Yeah, I just wonder if they ever, like, didn't then finish the job after that. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
did
right,
that
right.
did that ever, like, make somebody
That
go,
at
"Oh,
work.
damn, I shouldn't have done that," you know?
Yeah, right.
Now that I'm been drugged through the streets and thrown into a trash pile, one of the many trash piles around here, suddenly I understand, the value of life. Yeah, somehow I doubt it. But,
We need to get into this vinegar card situation. We could probably make some and like sell them as digital downloads to our fans. You know, some putting on airs vinegar cards.
who would be the, targets of ours? Your
Um,
snobby buddy or something like that? Like
yeah,
the
yeah,
most uppity motherfucker you know?
yeah. Your
Um,
friend your friend that won't just let you listen to Spotify because it's like vinyl. It just takes so much the sound quality away. Like that dude, the dude who won't shut up about beer. You know, I think that fits.
or just hipsters.
Yeah, yeah, hipsters for sure. They get the
Yeah.
Vinegar Valentines.
We could also go the other way and do like, just really pile on some poor unfortunate
Yeah.
trash if you want to.
We'd sell more of those
Yeah.
probably, if I had to
Yeah.
guess.
Yeah, our people probably know more of those people.
Yeah.
Uh, somebody that's, we could do something for the fats. That'd
Yeah.
probably get us in trouble.
Yeah, it would get us in trouble.
But I bet we could have some primo offerings though if we
Oh,
really
yeah.
set our mind to it. Um, Yeah, that's not a bad idea. I mean, we'll never do
Never
that,
do
but
it,
that's
but we,
but
you
yeah,
know.
yeah, you're onto something there.
Well, any of you cartoonists out there, email some samples to puttingonairs@gmail.com and we'll share them on the show. If you want to make a Vinegar Valentine, the subject can be anyone and make it as nasty as fuck.
Yeah, you could do that. You still be doing cameos?
Mm-hmm.
You could do I quit them, but
Yep.
you could do like cameos of that. You know,
Yeah,
make
shit
somebody pay
talking.
you X amount, and you'll write a poem about somebody that don't hit if you pay
Yeah.
you a yeah.
I've done the less eloquent version, which is there have been people that like asked that they went to me on Cameo, which I believe is cameo.com/Corey Ryan Forrester, and they were quitting their job and they wanted me to shit talk their boss so that they could send it to him in an email the day that their 2 weeks was up. So that's kind of a but I didn't write a poem. I just
Like a
you know
like a like a friendly type of shit talk, or like a
no.
go fuck yourself,
Go
motherfucker.
fuck
I hope you
yourself.
die
There
type of
there
shit
has
talk.
been there has been the friendly one too, like, someone was leaving their job and everybody wanted to wish them well on their journey, but hey, give them some ribbing about how they're leaving us and we're a family. But no, there've been a couple where it was like, my boss is the biggest piece of shit in the world. I fucking hate him, but I want you to tell him that, and I'm gonna send him the email. And I was like, fucking hey, $69 is $69, baby.
I got I got a request once from somebody that said their good friend who they were both fans, their friend was at like a major crossroads in their life and needed like a pep talk, right?
Yeah.
And so I mean it was like 7 or 8 minutes long, and I felt like I like really was like deeply sincere and was like speaking because I think they were thinking about quitting their day job to pursue something. It was something I had like experience with kind of,
Yeah.
and I was just really speaking from the heart, really giving it, like really laying it down in an uplifting way. I thought, and then I later met the person who it was for at a
Yeah.
show, and she was like, "Yeah, you made me that cameo whenever I was quitting my job or whatever. You remember that?" And I was like, "Oh yeah." And she was like, "Yeah, you're kind of all over the place. And I don't know if you're ever going to stop, but anyway." But I appreciate that. Goes back to what we were saying about how I ramble and am verbose and whatnot. I was like, she'll really take this as a sign of like,
My
that I
care.
care. And I
Yeah, right.
care because I spent this amount of time on this. But apparently she was just sitting there like, Jesus Christ. Okay, fucking, all
Get to the
right.
fucking point,
Thanks a
buddy.
lot. Not sure this was worth $50, or however much they used to be. Um, so yeah. Speaking of perhaps not being worth the money, I suppose we should talk now about strip clubs, eh?
Oh, that's right. Hey, let's talk about them.
Well, what do you think about strip clubs in general?
Well, so strip clubs to me is a thing that I really, 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 really love the idea of.
Right.
Because I'm at my heart a degenerate. You would think that strip clubs would be my favorite things in the world. The first time I ever went to one um, is when I turned 18. My buddy Danny Pye, God rest his soul, he took me to my first strip club, and my first experience was wonderful. It was oh, what's the one in Nashville called? There's like a chain of them.
Deja vu.
Deja vu. Deja
Yeah.
vu. So my first experience was wonderful because what they did was they had this gimmick where if you did come in on your birthday and they prove you're 18 and all that, they would then go get from their stock room a Playboy from the year and month you were born and give
That's
it to
cool.
you. It is
Yeah.
fucking cool. I wish I could find it. And, when you're 18, I mean, it is paradise. All I wanted to do was see titties. That was great. Now, the whole finding out you can't do nothing else about it kind of sucks.
Yeah.
And that really leads me to my next point, which is like, I got all that on my phone now. So I don't need, because like we all have this idea that like everyone in the strip club is filth, but us. Listen, we're in here and we're just having to deal with all the filth that is around it. But in reality, it's like in that moment, you're all filth. And I don't like the clientele of a strip club. You see the guys who were like genuinely thinking that they're hitting for the girls, and nothing is grosser than a dude in a sweatsuit just looking like, oh, I could fuck her, bro. Like, it's just garbage, but like, I'm for it. I'm absolutely for. I don't know if stripping is classified as sex work, but if it is, I'm for it. If it's not,
I think it is. I think it's like part
okay,
of the sex industry or whatever.
right.
I'm pretty sure.
Well, we know that I'm a huge supporter of sex work, even if I don't myself participate in it. But that being said, like, I just would rather, I don't like doing anything. Like, it's hard enough to get me to go to a regular bar. So that's how I feel.
Yeah, I'm with you. You ever at a strip club?
I have not at a strip club. I do have a
Yeah.
pretty strict policy against that. And
I always
even
felt
though,
the same way, but as you know, if anybody also listens to Well Read podcast this week, we talked about my birthday. Drew and Tushar, our buddies, took me to a strip club in Portland that's also a steakhouse. First time I didn't know it. They told me we were just going to a steakhouse. We get there and it's titties. Don't knock it, obviously, but
yeah, right.
um, and it was, steak was cheap, but pretty good. It was funny because it's Portland, so it was like farm to table titty steak,
Yeah.
which is hilarious to me. They've got some other ones in Portland. They've got a vegan strip club in Portland. They've got like a lesbian owned. This one ain't gonna hurt for you. This might not have been a strip club, but I think it was like a
Wait, why
lesbian
was the
owned.
lesbian owned one not here for me?
I ain't got there yet. A
Okay.
lesbian owned sports bar strip club that exclusively shows women's athletics. Where you at on that?
Oh,
Yeah.
no.
Bit of a
Like,
hard pass. Sorry,
I mean,
ladies. No
if you're in a
disrespect.
place that only shows women's athletics, you better break out some titties to get some excitement in there. That's all
Yeah.
I'll say about that. I did want to ask you something about the Portland strip club that I didn't ask you on Well Read, and I've been thinking about. Portland, and I'm for this, is sort of, a lot of people would consider the epicenter of quote unquote wokeness, correct?
Mhm.
Um, and because of that, I ask, how do women look?
Strippery,
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, because no offense, but I could see a
Buttholes was
place.
bleached, if that's
Yeah,
what you're
well,
wondering.
that's crazy. Because, like, just knowing Portland how I do, and knowing how those
I
type
mean, tattooed white girls with tattoos
yeah,
and shit,
okay, I
like
just thought
that's a very Portland look, I feel like.
I could just see Portland being like, "We're inclusive. Here's a bunch of hairy fat ladies dancing." Like, I could see
Not
that
in this one.
because it was so good. I don't like too much
I don't
inclusivity in a
fat
strip
ladies
club.
ought not be dancing, well, yeah, right.
Like, all different colors,
Good.
sure.
Get her
but-
out of here.
No, obviously, everyone should be allowed to chase their dream. I'm just saying those should be sectioned off like smoking and non-smoking at a restaurant, where it's like, if you're into that kind of thing, you can go over there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they do a lot of they add titties to a lot of stuff in Portland. Like,
Yeah.
they got, like, coffee shops where the baristas are got their titties
Seattle
out
does that too,
and
yeah.
whatnot. So, yeah, they really get into it up there. But, so I was thinking about it, and I was trying to look up, like, in your head, are there fancy strip clubs?
Um, I mean, yes, like, I would say that, like, they have some in Vegas where, like, they're also escorts, and they're like the $5,000 a night places. I would say that there's places that maybe they have a cover charge, or everything's so expensive, and they do that for the same reason that, like, a private golf course would make theirs so expensive, and that is, quote unquote, to keep the riffraff out, which we all know what they mean by that. But I would definitely say that there's probably strip clubs that you or I would not be able to get into that hit real hard, and every single one of like, it's like Alexis, Texas strips here, although Alexis, Texas actually does a tour and just strips at some regular places, so I don't know about that.
Yeah, well, they,
Do you know they be touring like that? Like, they
I
do
do, yeah,
sets?
I did
Yeah.
know that. They do tours, yeah, I've seen plenty of I know that, this is her stage name, excuse the hell out of me. Gidget the Midget used to come through
Yeah, she did.
Knoxville a lot,
She did.
yeah. So, yeah, no, they go on tour.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's, shit, what was I gonna say? Oh, I thought I was thinking it was gentlemen's clubs, right? Although, look,
Yeah.
don't get me wrong. I've been to and seen places that are called a gentleman's club
Yeah.
that were the opposite of high end, right? But I thought that, like, that was the idea with gentlemen's clubs,
Yeah,
right?
right.
Was that they were like the fancier versions of it, and apparently that was kind of true. Like, so first of all, gentlemen's clubs were a whole other thing entirely that had nothing to do with stripping or titties. They were just clubs for dudes, just dudes being
Right.
bros, right? They started actually in Victorian era England,
Really?
actually,
That checks out.
where it was like where fancy lads could go and like be away from
From the
women and the
Yeah, right.
public and shit and just sit there and smoke and talk about all the foxes they shot and shit
Yeah.
like that, right? Um, and then from what my research, what I could find, the name was co-opted by the like stripping industry, by people enterprising strip club entrepreneurs who wanted to get the illusion of a more upscale place. They co-opted the name gentlemen's clubs, and according to Wikipedia, starting with Scores in New York City, and it said in like the late 80s or early 90s, so really not that long ago.
It would
And
I
the idea was supposed to be
and I guess
this is what?
the idea was supposed to be they're gonna call it that, and that way when your wife sees it on the credit card statement, she's just like, "Oh, he just went to a gentleman's club. That's fine."
I mean, yeah, that was part of it, but it was just, just trying to be like a nicer, more exclusive experience or whatever. But again, then as soon as that happens, fucking
The mouse's
trash
ear
trash
decides yeah.
barrel trailer places start calling themselves gentlemen's clubs, and the whole thing just gets lost. But I tried real hard to find like a nice, like a definitive list of like the fanciest strip clubs in America or the world or whatever, and like a couple of the same ones kept coming up, but nothing like crazy, like private islandy or nothing. I think that
Right.
those dudes like
They just get strippers to come to their house.
they ship them
Yeah.
in. They got, yeah, right, exactly, and just set up their own strip club where in a place the poors are not even allowed to know about, right?
Yeah.
But there's like Spearmint Rhino in Vegas. There's Magic City in Atlanta. Diamonds in Atlanta. Atlanta is arguably the
The
strip club capital of this
it is.
country, by the way.
Magic
Mo-
City where they got them lemon pepper wings.
yeah, Lou Williams
Mhm.
violated the rules of the COVID bubble to eat
Get
them wings.
They're called on the menu now the Lou Williams wings, I
He
think.
earned it. He
He
earned it.
did
That
earn
it's a
it.
good segue into like I was gonna say, almost all of the stories I could find about like extreme flossing in the
Yeah.
strip club, right? Like the most money ever spent in a strip club, that type of thing. Pretty much all of them was rappers and the
And
occasional basketball player,
yeah,
right? So you said
right.
Lou Williams. James Harden. James Harden has his jersey retired at a Houston strip club. They hung it from the rafters because of the amount of money that he spent in that place, reportedly. Uh, One of the funnier stories to me was like, well, obviously this part is not funny. I'm just set up here, but like, do you remember the Astro World tragedy? Do you remember that music festival where all those people got trampled to death because there was no
Oh,
security wasn't good and all that shit? It was a
I
rap
didn't know.
festival or
Yeah, I did, and that
involved
because that
rappers.
was it, yeah, that was shit. This was recent, right?
I mean, it was like shit. That wasn't pre-COVID.
Was it
It was
Travis
like
Scott? Was it the
yes,
Travis Scott thing? That's recent
yeah.
to me.
Yeah, no, I agree, but
That's
now
actually
I'm
how
now
I
I'm
found
wondering,
out
like
Travis Scott was a rapper because I thought he was literally just a top tier shoe designer.
wow, okay. Uh,
I did.
so he makes his own shoes and they
No, he
hit
don't.
super, super
He
hard?
don't. He don't make his own. He
'Cause I didn't know
designs.
that.
He's got a collection for Nike, that are super. They super hit, and like you can never get them without ending up having to pay like $4,000 for them black market. And they're the Travis Scotts, and like every other person I know that has their name ascribed to something like that is like they are a person in the shoe world or something. So when I saw these were the Travis Scotts, I was just like, okay, this is a super hip, young, new sneaker dude, and he's got to deal with Nike. And then when I heard about that, I was like, what the fuck is the shoe guy doing trampling hoes at a fucking. And then somebody's
Right.
like, he's a rapper.
So Drake was also there, and Drake made his first formal statement, his first public statement about the tragedy, I think like 3 days after it happened. And of course, his statement is like, "I'm still reeling from this absolutely devastating situation I never thought I would find myself in." It's very sincere, heartfelt, right? But 2 days before that, so one day after Astroworld, Drake was on Instagram throwing $1 million on the floor of a strip club somewhere in Texas or whatever. So he's like, you could look at his statement and be like, I'm torn to pieces over the impact of this tragedy, and then go to his IG and see him just like,
Just
and all-
trying to
fucking
incite a part two.
booty cheeks clapping in front of his face and shit. Just fucking making around. I was like devastated, utterly devastated by the horrific outcome. Most rappers, all the prominent rappers got stories of, tens of thousands of dollars.
You
in
have
any
to.
given night. Yeah, right.
Like,
you got to
that's
keep up
just-
appearances.
Yeah, I was about to say that's that was that's what, like, losing $250,000 at a strip club is genuinely an occupational hazard in the rap game. Like, if you're not going to be someone who got shot a bunch, like 50 Cent, like, you better, and I'm not trying to generalize here and saying that every single rapper is just someone who goes to the strip club and throws money away, but like all the ones we've heard of do. You know what I mean? Like, if you want to put your name out there, you go drop a dime at fucking Magic City.
J. Cole go to the strip club and wrap them in blankets. Comfort.
Does he actually have a line that says that?
No, but
But
wouldn't
that is some
surprise you,
shit
would it?
he
Yeah.
would say. Yeah.
I fucking love J. Cole.
I do
but,
too.
but
I
he's
love
like,
him.
He's one of my absolute favorites, but he kind of like
Up
he's
his own
sorta that
ass.
way. He's sort of
Yeah,
that way.
that's why you
about a
like
lot of
him.
stuff. But yeah, you're right. That's
Dude,
true.
he goes so hard. 2014,
Forest Hills Drive.
Forest Hills Drive.
One of my all-time favorite rap albums, hip hop albums.
It's
ever.
probably, if it's not one, it's two. I'll say that. I fucking love him. But yes, he would go save all the women.
We still talk about hoes and stuff.
He
I
do.
mean, he the
He
one who
do.
says, "Don't save her; she don't want to be saved." So
That's true.
I'm being unfair to Mr. Cole right now.
He's
But,
very diverse.
They're not all, or well, okay. This one I got firsthand. So part of this, of course, you got to understand is that like these are prominent public figures, right?
Right.
It's like hard to find good stories of just
Yeah.
like regular rich dudes and shit. Also, they're more just like you said, for rappers, it's the opposite of discreet. It's like, keeping up appearances or
They
whatever.
would, yeah,
It's like,
they
this is what
wouldn't
we
do it if nobody
But,
was
like,
looking.
businessmen and like regular rich ass people oftentimes, they don't want that to be. I mean, some of them do, like that
They
fucking
have
Dan
NDA
Bilzerian
signed.
guy, whatever. But yeah, that type of thing. So, but I did hear a story from our buddy Smart Mark from the Weekly Skews podcast for all y'all out there in the extended Skew universe. Smart Mark knew a stripper once that told him a story about this guy. And I'm not going to say the city because this is like a very identifying feature that, this dude isn't a public figure, but you can figure it out. But a major American city she worked as a stripper in. And in this major American city, they had this huge hospital in the city, like the hospital for the city. And the chief of cardiac surgery for that hospital, okay, was one of her main clients. All right. And he'd get like private sessions. She'd go to his house and stuff, not fucking him according to her, but he wanted his like balls stepped on and that type
That's
of
what's up.
thing.
Yeah,
right? Balls
no,
stepped
that
on,
ain't what's
candle
up.
wax.
No,
No, that's
don't.
not at all what's up to me.
Candle wax,
it's a thing.
candle wax, when somebody tells me it, I go, that's not for me, but I do kind of get it. It's like that. It's not a lot of pain, but it's just enough to feel something. And like so many people that are into this type of thing, that's their whole deal, is like, I just need to feel something. But dog,
Right.
it ain't never for me gonna be getting my balls stepped on.
I mean, now that obviously you're right about that. Now that you put it that way, it's like, I guess it kind of makes sense the job that he has because he's
Yeah.
watched so many people die. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? He's let so many people die. He probably can't feel anything anymore.
Punish me.
So it kind of makes sense in a way. But anyway, that guy paid her, the stripper that Smart Mark knew, he paid her a lump sum. And at the end of this, I want you to guess what you think the lump sum was. He paid her a lump sum too. This was like after they'd done all the ball stomping, all this stuff. Their relationship had evolved to this point. He pays her a lump sum to choke him out in the parking garage of his hospital. So like after he gets off work, choke him out and abduct him, put a hood over his head, throw him in the trunk of the car, right? And he's got to be unconscious. If he ain't unconscious, it don't hit for him. Like
Refund,
she's got
yeah.
to successfully knock him out, put him in the trunk of the car, drive him to an undisclosed location, but it's just like her apartment. She don't have undisclosed locations, right? She's not a
Right.
fucking mobster. And keep him prisoner as a slave and a gimp, right, for 7 days in a dark, locked room, right? And so she had to, like, she told Mark she had to, like, get on the shadier parts of the internet to learn how to choke a man out in,
Yeah.
X amount of time or whatever. She successfully choked him out, got him abducted, took him back to her place, locked him in the closet, right? And just left him in there, right? Maybe sliding shit under the door, give him some water or whatever so he don't literally die, but that's it. Well, and this was part of it. He knew this. He's in there peeing and pooping on himself, right? Or in the corner
Yeah.
or whatever. Like, he's got nowhere else to go. That's part of it.
course.
He's covered in filth now. It's he's dick so hard, right? Loving it. Right. Got poop all over me. I'm a gimp in a dark hole. Ugh. And what more do you
Finish
want?
on my
Right?
face. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So he's doing this, but her neighbors start to complain because they
The stank?
smell his
Yeah.
poop, right? They smell, it's like your place smell like poop, right? And they got like this building super or whatever involved and all this shit. And so she had to call it off after either 3 or 4 days. It was supposed to be for a week. So she got about halfway through and then she called it off and let him go. But he did still pay her the full amount because she wasn't accepting anything less. I don't think it was on the table for him to not pay her the full amount, even though she
Right.
cut it halfway short. So that is the escapade, Joe. What do you think he paid her to do that?
Okay. Now, I had one specific question, but I think you just answered it. This is not something that went on, in perpetuity, like every time he had a week off. This was a
This was a one-time
one-time,
thing, as I understand it.
because
Yeah.
that does change it a little bit for me. God damn it, I don't know whether to go real high. I don't want to be too wrong. I'm gonna say $1.2 million.
You're so far off, bro. And I
In
thought that you
in
might
which
be.
direction?
You're way too high. Way
Oh,
too
that's
high.
oh my God.
I
Okay.
know. I know.
Uh,
I hear you. That's why I wanted you to guess because I thought
$250,000.
$20,000.
That's it.
I know, right?
Hell, I'd have done it for him for 10.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I mean, I'm saying, like, dude, that's what I thought too. I was like, 20 grand. Look, 20 grand's a lot of money. Don't get me wrong, but like, that's a fucking hell of a thing.
Yeah, that's
right there.
that's like you're committing
Like,
technical crimes. Like you would think that not for him to offer, but you would think she would have negotiated. And she probably did negotiate up. He probably came in with something. And she's like, okay, but like you're gonna be shitting in my closet.
yeah, dude, she's gonna have to
So
clean all that up later and everything. Well, I mean, I don't know. He's kind of her slave. She could probably make him. I'm sure he probably would clean it up before he left. But still,
for
dude,
sure,
she got to be in that house with his poop smell,
I don't
everything.
hit.
Him and there probably jerking off into his own poop and everything. Like while you're trying to watch the Real Housewives, like that don't
Yeah,
hit.
and I don't know what major city this is. You'll text me later, of course. But like
Yeah,
in some major cities, $20,000. Like, oh, good, my rent's paid for 3 months. Like I
yeah,
don't know. Like it would. I would need a lot more money to. I would need a lot more money to do this to someone I hate. You know what I mean? Like someone I hate. If they were like, I want you to knock me unconscious and put me in your fucking closet for a week, I'd be like, yeah, I mean, I hate you and all that sounds fun, but like, again, I'm gonna have to clean up your poop. So,
right. So yeah, those were that's the rich people stories I have of strip clubs, and like I said, in gentlemen's clubs, supposed to be ostensibly the fancier ones, but we all know that's not really the case anymore. As far as trashy strip clubs go, and then I want to do a brief history of the profession or the
yes,
establishment itself.
please.
Uh, but trashy strip clubs, what I'm more familiar with, frankly,
Me
you
too.
referenced it earlier in Knoxville, Tennessee. There's a place called the Mouse's Ear, which I've always thought is a pretty great
It
strip
is.
club name,
Tell
like
tell them why it's called that.
because it's tighter than a mouse's ear. You know.
Oh, I thought it's because a mouse's ear looked like a pussy.
Well, I mean, you don't know the phrase "tighter than a mouse's ear"?
I maybe have heard it.
It's like a redneck saying for a for
Well,
a
that
real tight
makes
vagine.
that makes way more sense. My
But I mean,
whole
I get
thing.
maybe the saying exists because of what you said.
Yeah,
So like you're not fully wrong, but yeah, because tighter than a mouse's ear. That's
yeah.
why.
Because I remember first pussy I seen, I thought it looked like and they're all different, but it looked like a dog's ear when it had its car head out the car window. You know what I mean? It kind of had that. And so naturally, when I heard mouse's ear, I was like, yeah, that's a hitting ear to have as a pussy, you know, if you're going to have one of
Yeah, but
them.
you see some like you know, C-section scars, things of
Yeah,
that nature
that's
in
what's
these
up.
establishments. It's right.
Real people,
Yeah.
real people. I'm like fucking what's his face in that song. I want the cellulite, the Richard Pryor afro, like all that shit. You know, that's Kendrick. You
Mhm.
know, show me the real shit. Like I don't need to. I mean, don't get me wrong. I like a good, perfect woman, but only if she just naturally happens to be that way. I mean, I like the fake titties too. I ain't gonna lie, but
What's the nicest one you ever been to?
probably that one in Washington we all went to.
I didn't go with
Uh,
y'all.
you didn't go with us? I
No,
can't. I mean,
Katie and the boys were in town with me that
that's right.
weekend. They were like
No,
2 and 3, so no, I didn't go to the strip club.
I just remember that. Like, I've only been to like 3 or 4 times. By the way, not I've been to 3 or 4 multiple times. I've only been like 3 or 4 times, and 2 of them were very much the mouse's ear type situation. Then you've got oh no, I went to a couple in Myrtle Beach, and they were about what you'd figure. It was a bunch of people thinking that they were fancy, but they were trash. And then that one in Washington, and it stands out to me as like this was the nicest. Like it was super clean in there. I remember the lighting was like really good and pristine, and there was one specific dancer that like she majored in showing her butthole, and I'd never
Uh-huh.
seen and
It's a
it because like
popular major, yeah.
it it is, and because like when I first, the butthole has like it's always been around, but it's sort of like on a come up as of the last 10 something years.
That's
Like
true, I feel
it
like, yeah.
it really is, like, eating booty, that's a thing, and, like, so, like, I feel like when I first went to strip clubs, like, it was just like, "No, titties and butts and pussies," but then the butthole really started getting its shine, and then, so this one girl was, like, showing her butthole, and it's funny because for some reason in my mind, I was like, "This is classy. This is cl
Yeah.
this makes it a classier," you know? But, yeah, it was pretty nice, but I left feeling like I always do, which is like, I would have so much rather been at Dave& and Buster's.
Yeah, I went to for my bachelor party, my buddy sent me to one in Atlanta called the Pink Pony, and it was
Yeah.
pretty fire.
I used to know a
Pretty
girl that
fire.
worked there. Her name was Corey Forrester. And
Okay.
that's how we knew each other because on the early days of Facebook, there wasn't a lot of people there. So when people would type in Corey Forrester, just us two popped up. And so she messaged me. She's like, haha, same name. And then we talked for a little bit. And I was like, what do you do? And she was like, I show my butthole at the Pink Pony or whatever. So, yeah, I'm sure she's not there anymore because that was
No, it's probably aged out.
15. Yeah, yeah, right. That's not what we think should happen. She's at the Claremont Lounge now, is what I'm
I
saying.
was just about to say, yeah, when that happens, you go to the Claremont Lounge in Atlanta,
Yeah.
legendary place known for giving some old biggins some shine up there, like a
Yeah, which hits.
non-traditional. It does
Yeah.
hit, yeah. Legendary establishment. So stripping, the term striptease was first recorded in 1938, but stripping goes back at least 400 years. And I'd say, I would think probably longer. It's like they say prostitution's the world's oldest profession. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? We're just like
But what the
women get,
person do to make the money to pay them? Mhm.
yeah,
Mhm.
poke farm. I don't know what.
Yeah, they could just give them a big rock.
Yeah, right. Yeah, turkey leg that they stole, letting somebody else with a big rock. Somebody that had turkey leg money. Um, for example, there's in a novel from 1681, there's a line from a character that says, "Be sure they be lewd, drunken, stripping whores." So
Aye.
they were, at least calling them stripping whores back as far as 1681. Um, there's also a book from 1707 where they describe the act of women stripping and stuff and like that as a party. But apparently, you'll never guess this, were a huge influence on stripping as it came to the fore. It was based in one of the most famous pursuits of the Western world, colonialism. right? So when all these countries,
We'll be
specifically
having
France,
them close, see?
yeah, when France was going into North Africa and just Frenching the place up, right? There was, belly dancers, right? You've seen the belly dancer things like
Hit for me.
yeah, right, sure. Well, that was like a thing they saw and immediately stole, and they started getting French white bitches to do it and stuff like that. But also more exotic, natives of the Orient, or whatever they call them, to come dance in their their reviews and things like that. A lot of whom were many of whom were just white women. Like, you ever heard of
That they get.
Matahari?
Matahari.
Matahari. I think
Matahari.
Matahari might be a cool subject for
It
you in the future.
is
Maybe
is this blackface but China face?
Egypt face, more
Egypt
like, or
face.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, sort of. Matahari was like a famous belly dancer and whatnot with that name, Matahari, but really she was just a white lady from, she was Dutch. She was from Dutch. That's Denmark, right? That's
Yeah, sure.
Netherlands.
Yeah.
Netherlands. Denmark's
Uh,
Danish, right? Netherlands is Dutch,
Holland?
which is also the Netherlands, right?
Yeah,
It do get
I
confusing,
thought the
but
Dutch is just what you called all them. Like, oh yeah,
all the
they're the
what?
Dutch. Like the Netherlands and Holland, and I know
That's the
it's
same
not.
place, I'm pretty sure.
See? Well, there you go. I'm right. This
Yeah,
was
but
literally in an episode of Seinfeld where fucking George couldn't figure out who the Dutch is, and I'm just now realizing I'm still George in this moment because I didn't learn.
yeah,
Deutschland?
Deutschland is actually what the rest of the world, I think, well, the non-English speaking world calls Germany, I think.
Okay.
Like, which has always been wild. Did you know that that's like a thing? Like, there's like a lot of the names we call countries
Ain't their name?
in English is like not what the name of it is in their own language or in like other languages and shit.
Because
For
it doesn't
example, Germany
translate
is
to us?
Deutschland. I mean, I guess I don't know. I'm pretty sure. I think Japan's another one's called like Nippon or something like that. Uh, but I don't know. Anyway. That's wild. But yeah, the Dutch are
Yeah.
Germanic people living in the Netherlands. Yeah, and Netherlands and Holland are the same place. So it's funny we needed to look that up. That's just
Yeah,
like
we're
very
idiots.
basic European
Yeah,
geography
but
there. But
we got
they
our own
don't.
shit going
We got
on.
yeah. That's yes.
They don't
That
know
is
the
the
difference
official
between
American
Alabama
stance.
and Nebraska, I guarantee you that much.
No, but they know like way more about America than we know about Dutch place,
Yeah, because we're in the news
Dutch
a
shit.
lot, because we fucking hit. How
Yeah,
about
I know,
that?
right. We're number one. That's right. We got a
God damn it.
cultural victory going. Um, anyway, so he started doing that. There was a notable early routine called the Dance of the Bee, Joe. The Dance of the Bee was when a dancer would gradually disrobe as she was searching for an imaginary bee in her clothes, right?
Oh,
They'd also do like a flea or an insect. So it's like, I don't know if they needed like a pretense or something. Like
right.
if that
Yeah,
was
the story.
like,
Everybody
oh,
likes the
this would be
story.
dirty. Otherwise, I'm not saying that's what it is because it doesn't say that in here, but I just wonder. But it's like I'm not just showing my titties. I got to get this bee out of my clothes, right?
Well, a
So
couple thoughts. Number one, I think that the final act should be her pretending to have been stung by a bee and convulsing naked on the floor. Number two, Dee Williams, who is a legendary porn star in the MILF category, or at least that's what she's in now, and Dee's a friend of mine. And so I saw that she put out a poll not too long ago that was basically asking if people really required a storyline in their porn, and some people the options were like, no, just let me see fucking. Then there was like, I need an entire full story with 3 acts and blah 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 blah. And then one of them was like, I do really like at least a basic setup to get me going. And that one had the most at like, I don't know, like 82% or something like that. So I do think that people, the bee thing is not too far off. Like people do like a little um joie de vie.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny because I didn't even think about this when it happened, but like, so yesterday I'm out here in the guest house / studio taking a big old poop, right?
There you
And
go. Country shit.
Katie recently has like gotten into gardening because there's a long running joke that she could kill a cactus, right? She
Yeah,
couldn't grow
yeah.
shit. And I guess that didn't hit for her. And I wasn't running a psyop or anything, trying to get her to like, like gaslight her into growing me some peppers or nothing. I wasn't doing that. But I think maybe that's what has happened because she's like doubled down and really tried to start gardening and she's doing yard work and all this shit. And it's been like a thing lately, right? So I'm
Ahead.
sitting out here on the toilet and all of a sudden she's like banging on the door and screaming. And she's like, Trae, I'm covered in ants. And she had ants all over her. And she's like jumping around and freaking the fuck out. And I was like, I'm pooping. I can't, like I
Yeah.
don't know what the hell I was supposed to do about it anyway. And
That sucks because that'd hit to see.
me doing something about it.
No, her being covered in ants. That would have been
Right. Yeah.
really good entertainment.
Yeah. But so anyway, I'm sure it was at least slightly less sexy than the dance of the bee was because she was losing her shit. But she survived. Everybody fret not.
Who the
But
like who the fuck would look for a bee in their clothes in a sexy way? That's the part that don't make sense.
right.
Like who in the world would be like, oh, I think I've got a bee in my shirt. Let me just pull a titty out of this little hole and see if it's in there. Like, no, you freak the fuck out.
Well, apparently they did it a lot. But anyway, yeah, I guess I won't tell you the rest of the story about Matahari, and you can just look it up because people probably know. But it's pretty wild. It's not just that she was a white girl pretending to be like Egypt or whatever she was pretending to be while showing her butt. There's like way more to it than that.
Okay.
But
Well, text me after this so I can do maybe next week's on Matahari because that would be cool.
So, okay, so this is in like the late 1800s. Belly dancing gets popularized at the World's Fair in Chicago in the 1880s, and like now it's like spreading around at all these like burlesque houses and like I said, reviews and vaudeville shit and stuff like that in America and Europe, right? And they obviously this was like in a lot of places a more Puritan or puritanical time, right? So like people, this wasn't hit for people necessarily. People get naked all the time and whatever else,
Right.
not back then. And so they would have these rules and shit, and the way they got around these rules was pretty wild. Like there was in England, they had a rule that like the rule was written to where it's like you couldn't a woman couldn't dance or gyrate while nude, right? So
Just had to
we think
stand there.
yes, and they would just stand there, and that was part of a thing. They also that became its own a whole popular other type of thing called
Oh,
tableau
yeah.
vivant, which meant like living picture, right?
Yeah, right. Just
And that's where they would have people stand totally still like that's a picture, but it's people, right? And it wasn't all titties. They do this with all kind. It was like just a popular thing for a while, like living pictures. But
yeah.
they started doing titty versions of it, right? And because they couldn't move, but obviously you just got to watch a chick stand there naked. So they came up with some pretty creative ways to get around all that.
Can I guess?
Yes.
Okay, so they had her stand there, but then they had one of those like old-timey ab workout machines that was just a strap of leather that vibrated, and they would put that on her so she would jiggle, but she wasn't technically the one doing it.
You're not far off. They had like a series of ropes and platforms and stuff that like they would stand on the rope, whatever. So she's not moving, but people would like puppeteer her around while her, titties is out and stuff. So like she's technically not moving, but she's being moved, right? And the other thing that they would do was they would use like fans, and they'd have assistants that have fans,
Oh, yeah.
all this shit. And like they'd do a dance covering everything up with the fans, or the assistants would be covering them up with the fans and stuff while they're moving all sexily.
Wow.
And then they would freeze and they take the fans away. And so she's standing there like, here's all the goods,
Yeah,
but
right.
I ain't moving anymore.
Right.
So it's not against the law. Right. So they found some
It's
interesting
so
loopholes.
dumb. It's so goddamn dumb how the past be, because like I can understand no titties, no nakedness, but I can't understand them coming to some sort of compromise. Like, okay, but you can't move. You know what I mean? It's
Well, I
like
mean, I don't think they intended it to be that way. Like they thought of, uh, I think it was more like they just outlawed it, but they did so in such a way that it left loopholes in the
Oh,
law. And
right.
so it's like,
Okay.
so people were exploiting those loopholes the way
Right.
rich people do with taxes and stuff.
Right.
That's
This
my
hits
understanding.
though. No,
I
that
don't
makes
think they
sense.
were saying like, we're okay with this. It was more
Yeah,
just
right.
like people were like, hey, technically we're not doing anything.
Right.
So yeah. And then it got it popularized the pole dancing and all that, the poles inclusion, all that. That's that came from America.
Okay. Was it
Yeah,
always the long steel bar, or was there some?
as far as
Was
I
there
know, I think it
well,
came
could
from
have been
San
wood.
Francisco in the 70s. And like that became the standard. The current standard, the American strip club format or whatever is pretty much the global standard at this point.
Right.
Because it became you know, what's the word? Not franchise, but it just, you know, gained popularity around
Yeah,
the world
right.
starting in the 60s and 70s. And then, you know, and then, like I said, in the early 90s, that's when they tried to make upscale places, called them gentlemen clubs. That didn't particularly work. And then now here we are. And that's pretty much it. That's strip clubs.
I will say, as a fan of the theater myself and performances, like, I have been to strip clubs where, like, sometimes the girl wouldn't even use the pole. Like, she'd just get out there and shake her shit. And, like, for my money, like, it seeing like seeing her do the pole stuff, like, honestly, she could be fully clothed or in the bikini. I'm just like, I like sitting there and going like, God damn, like, she must work out her core unimaginably, you know, like, that part of it. That's the only thing I'm there for, is seeing the fucking, like, oh, I bet she tried to be in the Olympics.
The acrobatics.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty wild. Like
Yeah,
some of
it
the
is.
shit some of them can do. It's something else. You ever seen one eat shit? I
It,
don't think I have. Not I don't
eat
mean poop. No, not
Oh,
like eat poop.
like
That's probably another
fall.
thing.
I've
Yeah.
I've seen videos on Reddit of a stripper like falling down and $1 million babying herself. Yeah, which did hit
Yeah.
super hard. Well, you
All
want to
right.
take a break and then we'll learn about William
Yeah.
of Ockham?
Ockham. I would love to
Ockham.
learn about this clever peasant motherfucker.
All right. Well, we'll be right back right
Okay.
after this. That's right, baby. The NFL draft is here, and the most exciting prospect is the prospect of being perfectly groomed head to toe with our friends Manscaped. Manscaped has long had elite downfield play with their Lawnmower 4.0, but in 2023, baby, they have the rookie sensation, the Beard Hedger, coming to ensure the face of your franchise is a pretty one. This 1-2 punch of men's grooming is the best acquisition for any home GM. So go to manscaped.com and save some salary cap with our code POA for 20% off plus free shipping. Y'all have heard me talking about this, the hedge trimmer and all that for a very long time. As I've said a million times, my favorite thing is the ball deodorant because I like to keep them smelling really good. But my favorite thing about the beard hedger is that you don't have all the apparatuses. You don't have to have like all the different guards. It's just one. You click it up or you click it down. It's fantastic. It's simple, and y'all know that I need simple stuff. Trae, tell them more about our friends over at Manscaped.
Well, this year Manscaped can help you make the sexy pick without forgetting about your big uglies up front. That's right. The Beard Hedger and Lawnmower 4.0 are franchise-changing combo that will have you looking at your roster with pride. Everybody who saw the Super Bowl knows what can happen with poorly managed grass. That type of ball playing field quality would never happen with the Lawnmower 4.0. This elite electric trimmer is a lock for first round talent. Just look at its explosive talent with RPM. With all that power, the lawnmower is still the most nimble on the field with its skin safe technology, which reduces your nicks and snags while making all the right cuts on your hair. In the season of trimming the roster, Manscaped will make sure you're cutting all the right players and not any important pieces to your D. You've done the dirty work. Now it's time to make sure you look good out there with the Beard Hedger and its 20 positions of precision. This powerful cordless trimmer helps you customize your look with a rotary wheel that has 20 links while only using one guard. In football, having a deep O-line may be a good thing, but in the bathroom, more than one guard is just a mess. Plus, its tough titanium blades and single-stroke efficiency can have you go from a bushy Matt Patricia to a sleek Sean McVay in no time. If you haven't upgraded your grooming tools already, head to Manscaped for a champion's worth roster reset. Get 20% off and free shipping with the code POA at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com and use the code POA. Go from Mr. Irrelevant to a first-round pick with Manscaped.
And as always, no nicks and cuts on your dicks and butts. Skew.
All right, and we're back, everybody. It's time for History of Professor Cho on the subject of Billy Ockie, William of Ockham, they call him.
That's it.
Apparently, he's a jumped-up peasant, thought he knew how to talk. That's the impression I'm getting. I have no idea who this guy is. So.
You do actually, but we'll get to
Really?
it later. You do, but we'll get to it later.
Was this William Shakespeare? Was he from Ockham? No, he's from Stratford.
No, actually, so William Ockham, his name, like most names, like they didn't really have surnames. It was just where you were from. So he was from Oak Hamlet, and a lot of people just split or just combined that, and it was Ockham. So he was William of Ockham. He was born in Ockham, Surrey, England in 1287. So, way on back there. He joined the Franciscan order in 1306 and began his studies at Oxford University. Now, the Franciscan refers to the followers of the three orders within the Catholic Church founded by Francis of Assisi, namely the Third Order of St. Francis, the Order of St. Clare, and the Order of Friars Minor. So he's at Oxford. He receives his bachelor degree, and he starts teaching. Then he's sent to the University of Paris to study theology. He returned. Here's where you know him from. And I just wanted to get to a little bit of his backstory so that this isn't philosophy with Professor Cho. So it's history with Professor Cho. He returned to England, and he's accused of heresy for his criticisms of the Pope and the Church. He fled to Avignon, France, the seat of the papacy at the time, to seek protection. His criticisms, by the way, were that the Pope and all the higher-ups at the church were full of shit because they wouldn't take a vow of poverty like the Bible says that they should. But this guy, he's a huge believer, and so he took this vow of poverty. He basically owned the clothes that he wore, and I guess he just kept washing them over and over again. And now he's looking at the popes. He's like, hey, it says right here in the book that we're supposed to wear poor men's clothes. And so, of course, the Pope and them, they were just like, oh, well, yeah, I mean, it says that, but like, what really constitutes. Yeah, well, we hit, and really, what constitutes poor man's clothes? And Ockham probably said something like, I don't know, something without rubies in it. Would be a start. He writes a letter to Pope John defending
anything that's
his
not a big sack.
Yeah.
I'm wearing a big sack.
Exactly.
That's what we wear out here. There was some sack wearing motherfuckers back then, dude.
So he's this dude that's got a lot of theories and a lot of thoughts. And even though he was a devout Christian, he also criticized the Bible. And to him, criticizing the Bible wasn't saying, hey, none of this is true. It's just that we have to look at these things rationally. And a lot of them really don't make sense because I've got this theory, which is, here's how my theory goes. It states that plurality should not be posited without necessity, right? So like when we're trying to figure out something, you usually go with the simplest explanation. You start adding on a bunch of other stuff and it doesn't make sense.
This dude had a hidden razor.
Yes, he did have a hidden razor. So this is Ockham. And so like he believed in the Bible, but he was just like, some of this don't make sense, and that's fine. It's just that the way he didn't like the way that they were translating it. Because at the end of the day, when the Bible gets translated, whoever is doing the translating gets to add their stank to it. They get to be like, that don't hit. When I translate it, I'll leave that part out. So this is Occam's razor. This is this whole dude. He was actually, because I didn't know, dude. I never knew who fucking Occam was. I heard Occam's razor, and I was like, that's just the thing that's said, you know. And I
I knew that
also,
Ockham was I knew that it meant some dude named Occam's razor, but I only ever knew him for his razor, and I didn't know nothing else about him, and I didn't know his real name was Bill or none of that shit. But
yeah,
what you like, you talk about how, oh, he
I
criticized the
wanted to trick
church, he
you.
gets in trouble, all this shit. Like, how did that work back then? Like, like he didn't because he didn't have a blog or
Right.
anything. Like, it's the 1200s. You said the seat of the papacy was in France. He's in England. Like, is it all just word of mouth? Like, people are being
Y-
like, "Hey, you heard this dude in England in
yes.
Surrey is talking shit," and they're like, "What's he saying?" And then he gets summoned, or like, what? Like, how's all that work? You just go out in the streets and talk shit, and then
Yeah,
people tell people you talk shit.
that's the only way it worked. Yeah. And so like I said, he writes a letter to the Pope, who is Pope John the 22nd. That's XX11, right? 22nd.
Yeah, they'd already had 22 John in the
I know,
1200s. I mean,
dude.
that makes
Like,
sense, I guess.
yeah, I guess so. But he's defending his views, and he's arguing that the Pope has no authority over matters of faith and doctrine. The Pope, of course, rejected his arguments and issued a decree forbidding anyone from teaching or defending his ideas. But here's the deal. Then, of course, they excommunicate him. And the reason they excommunicate him was they thought that the decree forbidding anyone of talking about his teachings would work. But like, the reason that he's not even dead at this moment is because he really hit for people. Like, and you got to think about this too. Nowadays, because he's what would be now considered a rationalist, which frankly, it was when I found out that this dude was super devout, religious, and a monk. I mean, maybe I'm an asshole for saying it, but the furthest from my mind was he was a huge Christian. You know what I'm saying? Because it can seem to go against all of that. But people really fucking liked him because they were fed up with how corrupt the Pope and things were, and he's kind of the one that brought to light how all this stuff worked, because like he found out that the popes were actual landowners. A lot of people didn't believe that back at the time. They're like, no, well, they live on all this land, but those are the people's land. But they were actually profiting from the land. It was theirs. They had the deed for it. This goes directly against the Bible. This is part of the reason that Jesus fucking flipped over the money changers
Mhm.
tables and shit. And so everybody's just kind of like, I don't know, this guy seems to make sense. So they excommunicated him. But my point about him being so wild is that me or you today saying all these things, there is a 0% chance we will get in trouble. Maybe we would, like, the only risk we have in saying outlandish thing, which I'm not saying this is outlandish, but the only consequences we have for like bucking the norm is like maybe we'd lose a sponsor on the podcast, or maybe people would unfollow us on Twitter. Back then, they literally had the power to burn your ass to death for
Mhm.
for even saying out loud, I don't know about that, as it pertained to the Bible. But they couldn't kill him because like he just had the love of the people. And after he's excommunicated, he fled to Munich, where he was welcomed by the Holy Emperor Louis V, who him and the Pope didn't hit for each other. I don't know if he necessarily liked William, but he was like, yeah, you don't like the Pope don't hit for me, you can come hang out over here. He was also involved in the debate over the nature of Christ, known as the Franciscan controversy. He argued that Christ and the apostles, this is what I was saying earlier, lived in absolute poverty, while his opponents claimed that, like, no, Jesus had possessions. He had all sorts of shit. Because that's a real thing, that there's some people that are like, no, Jesus was actually born of privilege. He was a wealthy man.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's prosperity gospel, isn't it?
Yes.
Like all these like televangelists and stuff with their private jets and shit, they try to argue that like Jesus wanted people to hit real hard money
Yeah.
wise. I just never, obviously, I'm Bible dumb. I never understood how they got past the whole like eye of the need,
It
camel
would
through an eye of the
it would
needle
be
and the money
easier for
changers
a
tables and all that shit. Like, it seems pretty explicit to me.
No, it's
that
dude.
Jesus did not want people to be super rich and flossing all the time, but
It's
somehow they
super
argue it and they convince people otherwise, obviously.
dude, it's super clear. And like, I'm not the religious type, nor are you, but I do when I look at a Christian type like this William Ockham dude, I would have liked him because I would have been like, okay. The thing I hate the most about a religious person is that they don't do even a fraction of the shit that they ought do. Like, I don't believe in it, but this guy believed in it and took a vow of poverty. He was a monk and he stood up to the church. Uh, what was I going to say? Just a couple more on his background. I really just want to talk about Occam's razor and us give some examples of Occam's razor and shit. But I thought it would be nice to talk about his background. And I hoped, and I can't believe this. I was like, I'm just going to call it William of Ockham, and maybe Trae won't know. But then I was like, no. As soon as I say Ockham, he's going to go, "Is that the guy with the razor?" And you didn't, so it worked perfectly.
Nope.
So in 1333, he was accused of heresy again and was summoned to appear before a papal commission in Avignon, because that's where Avignon was, where the papal place wasn't in Rome for the first time in like a very, very long
Yeah, I
time.
was about to say I didn't know it was ever not in Rome.
It was in Avignon for a while because I don't know. I would love to know. I
Probably
should
because
have
they got a
known.
French pope, and the French pope was
He was
like,
like, I'm gonna stay here.
yeah, I'm not gonna move. I don't have for me.
Well, it's wild to
Bring
me
the
that
Lord here.
being pope used to be like, it's like, oh, you have to be from Rome. And I guess they found this dude who like hit real hard, and they were like, God damn it, he'd make a good pope. So now it's in France. He was accused of heresy. He refused to go, and so he was placed under house arrest in Munich, and that is where he died in 1347. It was not called Occam's razor at the time, by the way. That was about 500 years after he died. And let's talk about, just in case anybody wasn't listening, Occam's razor, also called the law of economy or the law of parsimony, principle stated by the scholastic philosopher William of Ockham. And this is what it says in the language that he would have said it in, which is that pluralitas non est pondenda sine necessitate, which means plurality should not be posited without necessity. The principle gives precedence to simplicity of two competing theories. The simpler explanation of an entity is to be preferred. The principle is also expressed as entities are not to be multiplied beyond necessity. But in 500 years later, people start talking about this, and they're like, "Oh, that was that Occam's guy." So they started calling it Occam's razor. Do you know why it's called? Where the razor came from?
No.
Because he shaved off all the bullshit, dog.
Oh, for real?
Yes, you take something and Occam's razor shaves off all the unnecessary shit, and you're left with the simplest explanation. But
That hits for me.
this is obviously, I mean, he made it famous, but it was not, which it wasn't the first time this was posited. But this is wild that it was ever attributed to Occam, in my opinion, because another guy who basically said the same thing was Aristotle, who once said, "We may assume the superiority, other things being equal, of the demonstration which derives from fewer postulates or hypotheses," which is the same
It's the
thing
same
as
thing.
it's the same goddamn thing.
It's
But
not
for
like
some
Aristotle
reason,
didn't hit either. You know
that's
what
what
I
I'm
mean?
saying.
Like,
Like,
how did Occam get away with just aping Aristotle like that? Like, that should be
I,
Aristotle's razor.
I don't know. And the
Maybe
thing
it's because
is that,
Aristotle had so many other things
yeah,
he was hitting with. You know what I mean? And like, well, let Billy have this one.
a more modern example would be when, in an episode of the popular TV show The Office, character Kevin Malone famously said, "Why waste time say lot word when few
And
word do
few word
trick?"
do trick. Yeah.
But the thing about Occam is that he wasn't out there for popularity points and stuff. Like, he wasn't trying to sell tickets to lectures. He was just lecturing out of the good of his heart. And I'm pretty sure that like he even quoted Aristotle a lot. Like, he was like a quote unquote student of Aristotle, and that's probably where his came from. And I guess one day he just said it in a ironically simpler way, and so it was just okay. This that Occam motherfucker. And like there's so I can't. Where are you at on Occam's razor as a principle?
I think it's very useful in a lot of ways, meaning like I think there's plenty of times where like I
Like for
tend to
problem
overthink
solving?
shit.
Yeah.
I tend to overthink shit, let my mind run wild with variables and stuff like that. And so I understand the practicality of being like, no, listen, it's probably just, all things being equal, the simplest explanation is probably the correct one or whatever. Like, and I get that. But I mean, like, you know, sometimes it ain't.
Yeah,
You know what I
right.
mean?
Like combustible engines exist.
Like sometimes, well, what do you mean?
Well, I mean that like some things are complicated and they have to be complicated in order to even be. You know what I mean? That might have been a bad
Right.
example, but like
Well,
sometimes
because his thing is supposed to be like trying to explain, like, if you're looking for an explanation for something, right? Something that
yeah,
exists, it's like, don't needlessly complicate it with all
right.
these extraneous variables and stuff if they're not necessary,
Which is
right?
why it don't hit for you.
Right, because I'd stay doing that.
Yeah,
Right.
right.
I extraneously add all kinds of variables to everything, and that's and that's kind of what I'm saying. It's not that it don't hit for me. I can appreciate the profundity of it because I do have that penchant. But like, you know, sometimes no, you
Yeah,
know,
right. Exactly. Sometimes no, and the two basically I think people need to know that it's not a scientific truth.
no,
It's a
right.
suggestion of like it's a most of the time this thing because like two things that I wanted to point out, and I only found one source on this, and it looked like it may have just been opinion, but according to something I read, uh, one of Occam's criticisms of the Bible, or one of the ways that he was trying to explain away the miracles, and basically it was like, yeah, Jesus probably didn't walk on water because that's really complicated. He probably was standing on a sand dune. Occam's razor, you know what I mean? And they didn't know what
Hmm.
that was. But then like on that one, I guess when it like suits my narrative, I'm like, yes, Occam's razor, always and forever. But then it's like a lot of people would use Occam's razor to say Occam's razor dictates that Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone. You know what I mean? And in that case, I'm just like, no, fuck that razor. I ain't with that. You know what I mean? Because, but then they'll say, they're like, no, I mean, look, you either buy into there's this magic bullet and all this synchronized shit had to happen at once, or simply that guy had the gun and that guy did it. And I'm like, true, but then enter Jack Ruby, right? You're taking all that out of account. Jack Ruby shooting Lee Harvey Oswald immediately tells me he did not act alone. And the reason I know that is because, for the love of fucking God, do you think that Jack Ruby, a very successful mobster, just shot Lee Harvey Oswald because he loved Jack Kennedy so goddamn much when they're definitely about to fucking kill him anyways, right? No, it was clearly to keep his fucking mouth shut, which means that he weren't working alone. Anti Occam's razor.
Right. Well, that's a hell of a demonstration you just put on there for why you don't like, because you're talking about that as like, as though that's all, given fact and everything, when I feel like it ain't. I mean,
No,
I'm
I'm just
not a
saying that
Kennedy guy.
Jack Ruby's
You s-
involvement tells me that it wasn't an act alone and that it is more
okay,
complicated.
but it don't tell you that though. Like, it doesn't necessarily. I'm not a Kennedy assassination person. I can't talk about it even as eloquently as you just did. But I do know that it's like, it's not it's not a generally accepted fact that he wasn't working alone or anything like that. I mean, I know it's like still the official line. I think there's plenty of people. The only thing I can tell you is this. I read this is literally all I have to say on the subject, because I last year in the fall I read 11/22/63, which is the
Yeah, the historical fiction.
Stephen King historical, because
I've
I
been
love
meaning to
Stephen
read
King,
that.
big Stephen King fan. It's a Stephen King historical fiction book about the assassination of John F. Kennedy. In the afterword for it, Stephen King goes in his whole thing. He's like, I've always been a fanatic about the Kennedy assassination. I've read about it. I've been whatever for years and years, all this shit. He's Stephen King. And he said, at the end of the day, he's not saying with 100% certainty, but at the end of the day, he ultimately has to come down on the side of it was Lee Harvey
Get
Oswald
the
and he
fuck out
acted
of
alone.
here. Get the
I'm
fuck
just
out of here.
saying,
I think
I'm
he's
not.
the
I'm
only
not
one that
saying
pulled the
that.
trigger. I think
But
he's
you-
the only
but-
one that pulled the trigger.
And
I don't
I'm
believe.
not gonna argue with you because
Why
I'm not.
the fuck would Jack Ruby kill him when he was
See,
about to be killed? It's
I
so he
don't
would
know.
shut the fuck up
I don't
because he
even
was
know.
a patsy.
I
said
don't even
it.
know. I don't even know enough about it to like give you a retort for that.
You don't have
All
to know
I'm
everything
saying
about
is-
it. You know
all
what
I'm
I just
saying is-
fucking said, and it's logic.
But all I'm saying is,
Dude, you're such a
That-
piece of shit.
me,
Yeah.
I'm quoting other people. I'm
If
telling you shit.
anyone else had said what I just said, you'd be like, you're making good points here, but because it's me, you're
No.
like, no.
No, because what you did was you said like, you're like, well, listen, obviously this factor tells you beyond doubt
It does.
this conclusion, but it doesn't, Corey, because if it
does.
did, no, because if it did, it wouldn't be the most hotly debated event of the 20th century or whatever. Like there's no
Most people believe how I believe.
maybe
Guaranteed.
I don't know that part either.
Why
I'm just
the
saying, like,
fuck would he have shot him when he was
I
about
can't-
to be dead
I can't
anyways?
answer that.
It's
can't answer
because
that
he
I
was
don't
with the
know
mob.
about this.
The mob hated Jack Kennedy. He used to be their boy, but then he was introducing legislation that was going to fuck them, and his brother Robert was coming after him heavily with like a whole new group of pro-he type motherfuckers for whatever modern day thing was keeping the mob alive. They didn't
All-
like him.
All I'm saying is you're talking about it as though it's solved or whatever, or at least that part of it is solved. And the only
part of it
thing
is
I know,
solved.
the only thing I know about it is that is not the case. It's still not. It's one of those things, man. It's like the thing. It's the thing. It's like we
Occam's razor
don't
heads for you.
know the fucking truth of it or whatever. And you're talking about it like clearly this is the truth of it. At
We
least this
don't
part
know.
of it. And that's
We don't
not,
know what the mob dealings were, who ordered the hit, but we do know that fucking Lee Harvey Oswald did shoot that motherfucker, but he was told to shoot that motherfucker, probably under the guise of "we're gonna kill you if you don't do this shit," and then they killed him because that's how that worked. Lee Harvey Oswald probably had some extenuating debts, and they're like, "Hey, we'll give look, you're gonna die anyways. We're gonna fucking kill you, okay? But if you do this for us, then your family will be taken care of forever." And this guy was like, "Well, god damn it, if that's the only shot I got, there you go, solved." It's definitely, I mean, solved.
the Kennedy assassination.
No,
is
just the fact.
solved.
Just the fact. No. The only part that solved is that he wasn't acting alone. He was not
Okay.
acting. We don't know all the other people, but to me, the Jack Ruby thing, because it makes no fucking logical sense to kill him for any other reason than I don't want him to say what he's going to try to say in order to get a plea deal. It makes no sense. Lee Harvey
Bro,
Oswald.
let me ask you something. Let me ask you something, just hypothetically here. If somebody assassinated successfully Donald Trump tomorrow,
Mhm.
that person, you don't think their life would be in danger from anybody? You don't think no one would try to retaliate and kill that person for killing Donald Trump in this
Yes.
country?
Yes, I do. I
That- I
absolutely
mean,
do. But
Kennedy,
not Jack Ruby.
Dude, I'm not trying to compare Kennedy to fucking Donald Trump in any other way,
I'm
except
just
for
saying-
like he had a major cult of personality and everything. A lot
did.
of people was like, this is our guy or whatever. If somebody killed Donald Trump tomorrow, that person would have to be under lock and key, in my opinion,
course.
or that because they would be a target. So like,
But Jack
I don't
Ruby
think it's
is-
automatically weird that
yes, it is.
the guy
because
who
of
killed
who Jack
Kennedy
Ruby
got
is.
killed by somebody else right
It's
after that.
It's
Like,
because of who Jack Ruby is. This guy for his whole life has been a cold but calculated man of money first over everything. Then when you take the Kennedy ties to the mob, that's what the mob. Trae, Kennedy didn't hit for the mob. If you go by logic, the only reason Jack Ruby would have came up to Lee Harvey Oswald was to jack him off. You know what I'm saying? Because he didn't hit for them. So, like, yes, dude. Like, if someone assassinated Trump and some dude wearing jorts went up and shot him, I'd be like, yeah, it makes sense. You know what I mean? But if someone who had who had every reason to hate Donald Trump, you know what I'm saying, did it, I might think, okay, well, maybe they sent this old boy there to kill him. But I hear what you're saying.
also
Occam's
going
razor
back
heads
to
for
the
you.
earlier example of Occam's razor that Occam himself apparently gave, like the whole Jesus walking on water thing. Like, if you believe in the divinity of Jesus, isn't it the simpler explanation that
Yes,
he just walked on
that's
water?
that's
Like,
one of the arguments of like they were
because
talking.
obviously I don't, but if you do, that's a way simpler explanation. It's like, no,
I
he
agree.
just did. You see
I,
what it? Because I would have thought Occam's razor is like, it appears as though that man is walking on water. If you believe that man is a son of God and a miracle worker or
right,
whatever, then the simplest explanation is that some bitch walking on water right now, right?
right. But
If
then
I saw somebody appearing to walk on water, just some dude, I would be like, obviously he's standing on something. There's some kind of trick going on here, right? But I'm not assuming that guy is divine in
right,
nature. I feel like that makes a pretty big difference.
Occam's razor actually comes up a lot in spiritual theology because of this reason. And basically, everyone on the religious side comes to the conclusion of, yeah, I think it's simple. He's divine. He walked on water. There you go. And like people will say, like, you know, like, okay, let's use Occam's razor. Was there a big bang that created all of life? Or was it just simply God snapped his fingers? But then it's like, but you have to peel that back too. Where did God come from? How complicated is that whole thing really? So like, you know, yeah, that because like I said, that but this why I like this motherfucker so much is because he believed that God was divine. He believed all that shit. It's just that he didn't trust the people who wrote. Like anytime Jesus weren't talking, he was like, I don't know about that. You know what I mean? And he was such a purist with the whole, you know, we're supposed to live in poverty and serve people, that when he sees the Catholics doing all their bullshit, he's like, well, now I must rewrite the Bible or, you know, do my own critiques of it or all that shit. So, but anyways, my whole point of wanting to talk about him was I never knew there was that much of a backstory to this dude, and I damn sure would not have believed that he was a holy monk. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like back then, around that time, if somebody was like thinking and talking and people
Yeah.
remember they're thinking and talking, the Lord was probably somehow involved.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you know what I mean?
And not someone
Like,
talking about the opposite of Lord.
right, the Lord pretty much had to be involved back then if you was gonna like if you was gonna have any kind of career in thinking and talking or painting or sculpting or any
Right.
of that. You know, you was gonna have to get in bed with the Lord pretty much. Big
W-
Lord was gonna be lining your pockets.
Well, I hear all my nephews and nieces screaming from downstairs. So what do you say we get some airmail in?
Yeah, it's for me.
All right, subject line, episode 54. Hey, gang, love the pod, been listening since the second week. Thank you for always making me crumble to fits of laughter every week while I get ready in the morning or while cleaning the house or driving in traffic. That last situation has me looking like a lunatic, so extra thank you for that. I grew up pores adjacent. Me too. I grew up pores adjacent in the ever changing state of Iowa. Sorry about our dumb politicians recently trying to ruin the state and country with hatred and child labor. Didn't know about that. Certainly checks out. And so I love studying the flip side of the topics with you. I do have one critique to share, if I may be so presumptuous that you care to hear it. Clearly I do. I'm listening to the most recent episode and heard the first rim shot comedic sound effect, and I'm not a fan. What the fuck? I didn't even know we did that. I guess that's a
Me neither.
critique of you, BPP. That sounds like it hits for me. The crystal, the crystal myth slash stripper name joke was actually pretty funny and didn't need it. Well, I wouldn't have even read this shit if I knew it was a critique of BPP. I saw critique and I was like, this is going to be something funny that I got wrong. You know what I mean? And I'm always willing to live those. Dad, you keep doing your thing, unless we get like 50 other emails that say the same thing and then quit. That was from I don't I don't know if they wanted their name read, but their initials were AF. There you go. You get the what's the word, recognition you deserve. And one last one here. Subject line, you called it. And then it's just a link to an article where Gerard Depardieu has been accused by 15 more women of sexual assault. So we did. I don't think it's funny because like
15's a lot.
I didn't feel like we called it. I thought it
We
was common
didn't.
knowledge.
I I really shouldn't say this now, but the way that I remember that episode was like, I don't remember us even really going in on him that hard for the sexual stuff. Matter of fact, I remember us being like, it's France.
Well, yeah,
fucking,
but we did point it out.
we pointed out that it had happened, but we weren't like, we did not take a hardcore stance of like, this guy's a monster. Clearly he did this or whatever at all. I feel
it is?
like, and I mean, now I feel like, I guess we should have. We mostly just focused on his like
Absurdity.
His drunken absurdity. Yeah.
Yeah, you know what I think it is now? You remember when we got that email that was lambasting us for not giving all the praise to Gerard Depardieu because he was such an icon? And I read that email, and then I motherfucked that lady for about 10 minutes. I bet that's what it was.
Yeah. So you called it. Good job.
Well, again, no. I thought it was common fucking knowledge. Like, dude, I didn't even know half the stuff about Gerard Depardieu that you was even saying. I mainly knew him for being like that guy,
Right.
Well, there you go. This has been Putting on Airs. I'm going to go play with my kids. Appreciate y'all listening. Appreciate y'all helping this show move up in the ranks as it's doing every single week. Remember, the best way to help us, well, two best ways to help us, rate and review the show. Even if you've already done it, it'll probably let you do it again. Give us 5 stars, because don't even waste your time if you're not going to do that. Give us 5 stars. Leave a little review on whatever podcast platform you do. And also, tell your friends about the show, because I think it hits. Don't you, Trae?
I do think it hits.
It hits real hard.
Convinced of its hit status. So,
and remember,
please spread the word.
If you're just listening, you can also watch it at watchpoa.com. Share it all over your socials. We sure love you, and stay fancy, motherfuckers.
Mm-hmm.
Here's Lydia Lovelace.
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Royalty and rednecks are alike. They both like cutting and picking fights. Biscuits and baked beans where they don't belong. Sit on down with Corey and Trae and learn some fancy shit today. We'll laugh a little even when they're wrong. They'll take you to a magical place where if you call someone a cunt, nobody cares. They keep it debonair at Putting on Airs. Putting on Airs. Putting on Airs.